Let's understand about punctuations. Why punctuations are used? What is their funda of to be used in the language? Well, they all can indicate a pause in a series, separation of ideas or elements in a sentence. Now, they help us to understand when we should be taking a pause, when we want to emphasize on something. Now, when we talk to each other, we take pause at places where we want people to pay attention to. We raise our voice, we go down in our voice modulation, we go up, we use a different pitch altogether depending upon what we want to communicate with the person who we are talking with. Helps us to create that ideology or that atmosphere at the time of reading the sentence. It helps us to find out whether the writer wants us to take a pause at some time or maybe emphasize on some point. It is also used to make the reader emphasize on certain aspects of the communication. Every punctuation represents its own unique usage in the sentence, and we are going to understand the punctuations here. So let's get started. Let's understand about apostrophe. Now, apostrophe is used to show omission of letter or letters from a word, possessive case or plurals of lowercase letters. Now, I give you an example. How is it? Before I go on to the examples mentioned in this presentation. Now, for example, omission of letter. For example, if I'll say it is, we can write it is at simply as it's. We use an apostrophe. For example, similarly, think of any other example. Let's take an example of, let's say, dozen. How we write it? Dozen. Now here, basically it is nothing but does not. It's a short form. So apostrophe is used there also. It is also used to show the possession, and that I can discuss in the first example here used in the presentation. The hamster's water tube needs to be refilled. Now here, as you can see, the possession of water here is with hamsters. So apostrophe is used there. Now guys, when the possession is shown with plural form, we use the apostrophe after the S. In this example, we can understand that in the pet store, the hamster's bedding needed to be changed. Now, please pay close attention to what I'm saying. Now, why I'm using the similar kind of name and the example so that you can find the difference here. In the above example, I was showing the possession of water. To whom? To hamsters. Now here hamsters is plural form. So I'm not using an extra S. In fact, I'm using apostrophe after the alphabet S. Hamsters bedding. Because I am trying to show the possession of bedding to the plural word hamsters. So apostrophe is used after S. Please understand that. Now guys, we use comma to indicate a break or pause within a sentence. Now, it is used to show separation of ideas, elements. It is also used as a short pause. It is different than full stop, but you can say that it is distant relative of full stop. Full stop means end of the sentence, end of the declarative statement, but comma gives us a short pause. As I mentioned earlier, it is used to indicate a break or pause within a sentence. Now let's understand this thing with few examples here. The first example is Bill Gates, CEO of Microsoft, is the developer of the operating system known as Windows. Now, I'm using comma because I want you guys to take a short pause after Bill Gates. Why? Because I want you guys to emphasize, pay attention that who is the person I'm talking about. Then after that I'm saying CEO of Microsoft. So I'm using short pauses after these information because I want people to pay attention to it. It is also used to show separation of things. For example, the fruit basket contains apples, bananas, and oranges. Now, of course, we are not using comma after n because I've already used bananas. After bananas, I've used comma there. So, as you can see here, I'm using a comma after apple, after bananas because I'm trying to separate these items. Third example is, I am originally from Hola, Tana River Community, Kenya. Now, why it is that? Now, here in this sentence, guys, why I'm using a comma? Because comma is used to separate a larger geographical area from a smaller one located within it. Now, Hola is a place which is in Kenya, and Tana River County is also a place which is in Kenya. So I am using commas there. Once again, I repeat, it is used to separate a larger geographical area from a smaller one located within it. Let's go to the another example. After the show, John and I went out to dinner. Now, what we understand here? In this sentence, guys, we are using a comma to separate an introductory phrase from the rest of the sentence. And the introductory phrase is what? After the snow. And then rest of the information is there. John and I went out to dinner. Another example, Ryan went to the beach yesterday, but he forgot his sunscreen. Now, why I'm using a comma before but and after yesterday? Because it is also used to separate two independent clauses. Now, what is a clause? Clause is a group of words which has both the subject, that means the doer of the action, and the verb, a word which denotes the action or state of being. As you can see, Ryan went to the beach. Now, Ryan is the subject who is doing the action. Went is the word which denotes the verb. Similarly, in the another sentence, after the comma, but he forgot his sunscreen. He is the person who forgot. So he is the person who is doing the action. So he is a pronoun which is behaving as the subject. Forgot is a verb. So clause is a word which has both the subject and the verb. So it is also used to separate two separate clauses. Guys, I'm also trying to cover other grammatical aspects while explaining about these examples. The another example is, Amber, could you come here for a moment? Now we also use comma after a name because we want to address directly to that person. For example, Ron, please come here. So I'm giving a direct order or direct information to that person, Ron. So you use comma after that as well. The last example here to understand the usage of comma is, while I was at his house, John asked, do you want anything to eat? Now, as you can see here, why I'm using comma there? Please understand. Comma is used here to separate a direct quotation from the sentence introducing it. Now, of course, I'm using while I was at his house. This is my introductory sentence. John asked. Again, I'm taking a small pause. That is comma, because I'm taking a pause, because I'm trying to make a person listening or reading the sentence to take a pause there, think about these things. I am using double quotation mark in this example. Of course, we're going to understand about it in the further presentation. Let's understand about semicolon. Now you can see how it is used here in these examples and how it looks like. Now what semicolon does? Semicolon is nothing but it is used to connect independent clauses or sentences. Now we have already discussed what you mean by clause. If you didn't listen to that part of the recording, I suggest pause the video, go back and listen to it again. I have explained about the clauses. So let's understand the usage of semicolon by these mentioned examples. First example is, people continue to worry about the future. Then I'm using a semicolon. Our failure to conserve resources has put the world at risk. Now why I'm using it there? I'll explain it to you. Because semicolon, as I mentioned, is used to separate two related but independent clauses. Now that means these two sentences are related to each other, but they are independent. What you mean by independent clause and dependent clause, or independent sentence and dependent sentence? That means if I just use the first part of the sentence, I highlight the part, let's say if I do not pay attention to the part which I just highlighted here. If I just focus on people continue to worry about the future. If I am using this sentence independently, separately, without the other part of the sentence, the communication is complete. You do not get any idea in your head or any confusion in your head, any question in your head, what I'm talking about, because this sentence can stand on its own. Similarly, if I do not use the earlier part of the sentence, if I simply say or write, our failure to conserve resources has put the world at risk again, this sentence can deliver the information independently. I do not need any other sentence to complete the meaning. There is no question mark or there is no question comes in my head after reading this part of the sentence. So these two sentences are independent sentences, or you can say independent clauses, because they can be used independently. Now semicolon is used to separate two independent clauses. Let's go to the another example how semicolon is used. I went to the show with Jake, my close friend, his friend Jane, and her best friend Jenna. Now, please pay close attention to it and tell me why it is used like that. The reason is semicolon is also used to separate a complex series of items. Now, of course, there's so many things I'm talking about. I went to the show with Jake, my close friend, his friend, Jane, and her best friend Jenna. Now, I cannot keep on using comma again and again. It makes a sentence looks weird. So, to break the monotony or to use something else, we use semicolon to break many things clubbed together. The last example here to understand is basically on colon, not on semicolon. Now in semicolon, guys, we use a symbol like this, as I have used. I'm so sorry. Okay, I clean it. Let me show it to you. Semicolon is presented like this. Now colon is basically nothing but two dots, two vertical dots. So now the third example is on semicolon. Let's understand that. The professor has given me three options: to retake the exam, to accept the extra credit assignment, or to fail the class. Now why it is used here before to retake the exam or after me three options? Because it is used to introduce a list. Now the list is what? Let's understand what the list is. List is to retake the exam, to accept the extra credit assignment, or to fail the class. Now this is the list. List of options, list of things to do, or anything else. It does not introduces, but it shows the list of options. So colon is used to introduce a list. So we understood about semicolon and colon. Now guys, in this recording here, now at this part of this recording, I am focusing on colon. However, I spoke a bit of colon already because the example is repeated. The professor has given me three options: to retake the exam, to accept the extra credit assignment, or to fail the class. Now why colon is used? It is used at three places. It is used after the quotation, with an example, or for a series. Now for a series, we have already seen how it is used. Let's go to the another example. There's only one person old enough to remember that wedding: grandma. Now the colon is used here before the word grandma. Why? Because it is also used to introduce a new concept or example. Now in this sentence, I'm introducing a new person, that is grandma. As you can see here, I'm using a new person here, and that's the reason we are using colon, the word before grandma. It is also used, let me give you another example here before I give you the usage. Fred's favorite movie was The Lord of the Rings. Then I'm using a colon. The Fellowship of the Ring, though Stacy preferred its sequel, The Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. Now why it is used like this here? As you can see, I am using colon before the name of the movies, like The Fellowship of the Ring and then The Two Towers. Why? Because a colon is also used to separate parts of a title. Now here, these are two parts which are separated. That is the reason it is also used here. In many cases, guys, we can get away with using comma in place of colon. So, but then In examination, examiner might judge you on this knowledge, so it's good to know the usage of colon. Let's understand about sentence ending quotations. Now, sentence ending quotations are nothing but period, question mark, exclamation mark. Now, what period is? Period is nothing but it is used to end a sentence, and it is used to end a declarative sentence. You can say that way. Question mark, it is used to express a direct question, or it is used with a sentence showing a direct question or depicting or expressing a direct question. Exclamation mark, as per me, is the strongest quotation used in the language English, because it is, as I mentioned here, it is the most powerful quotation, and it expresses sudden outcry, shock, and surprise. So, what it does, it expresses sudden outcry and shock and surprise. For example, I can't believe how difficult the exam was. Or you can also say or write, oh my god, like we say OMG, and then we use an exclamation mark after that. So basically, this quotation is used to show sudden surprise or shock. Period is a full stop, it is used at the end of the sentence. For example, here, the accessibility of the computer has increased tremendously over the past several years. For question mark, let's get with one example. Let's get one example here. What has humanity done about the growing concern regarding global warming? So it's a direct question, and I'm using a question mark there. Usually, we all use these quotations correctly. So this much explanation is good enough to understand or to revise or to be sure when and how these are used. Let's understand about double quotation. As you can see here, double quotation mark represent exact words spoken or written by someone. It shows the exact words taken from a written source. I give you an example here. According to the article, the value of the dollar in developing nations is strongly influenced by its aesthetic value rather than its face value. What I want to say here is, let me explain it to you. That means this sentence is mentioned exactly in the book, the same way it is mentioned in the sentence. For example, what the book, the value according to the article. Now, in the article, this sentence was exactly mentioned the way it is mentioned here. So, these are the exact words. For example, Subhash Chandra Bose said, "Tum mujhe khoon do, main tumhe azadi dunga." Now, that sentence which I spoke in Hindi is going to use double quotation. Why? Because these are the exact words spoken by Mr. Subhash Chandra Bose. Let's understand one more quotation, and that is parenthesis, or you can call it as bracket, but not the bracket exactly. Parenthesis. It is used, or it is like this. Let's understand what is it. It is used to express afterthought or extra information that is not directly expressed by the sentence. It is an addition to the direct information. You will need a flashlight for the camping trip. Don't forget the batteries. Now, why I am using parenthesis with the information, don't forget the batteries, because I mentioned that you carry a flashlight, but carrying a flashlight without the batteries is of no use. You cannot use flashlight without the batteries. So it is also mentioned there indirectly that do not forget to carry the batteries. And as you can see here, guys, after the batteries I am using exclamation mark. That means I am trying to show a sudden information, emphasis on it. Don't forget the batteries. That's what I want to say. How I'm going to say this? You will need a flashlight for the camping trip. Don't forget the batteries, because I want to pay sudden attention to that piece of information, but not directly. Another example is, it is used to explain something which can't be understood from the rest of the sentence. For example, Steve Case, AOL's former CEO. So that means I want to say that Steve Case is the former CEO of AOL company, resigned from the Time Warner Board of Directors in 2005. Now, if I would have simply mentioned Steve Case resigned from the Time Warner Board of Directors in 2005, many people must have not known, or I'm sure if you're reading this sentence randomly, definitely you do not know who Steve Case is. But then indirectly I mentioned that he's no one but the former CEO of AOL company. So now guys, usage of quotation will not only help you guys in sentence correction or spot the error, but also at the time when you're going to appear for any writing assessment round. I hope you get a call by your CAT score. Now, most of the colleges nowadays, they also ask you to write a passage or a summary or why you should be given the admission. So, if you know the usage of these quotations correctly and you know how to use them, it will add an edge to your writing. And if you're not using them correctly, of course, your writing won't be that effective. You can not only impress the reader by usage of correct quotations, but you also show that your information or that your knowledge about grammar is not superficial. Thank you guys. But then please read, go online, research, and know more about the quotations, practice questions on quotations, and I'm sure under the spot the error section, under the sentence correction section, you won't be missing out on these errors or these corrections. Thank you guys.